Fights on Fremont 5 isn't just another boxing card, it's becoming a proving ground. Nationally ranked youth fighters, state champions, out of state opponents coming in from places like Vegas, and one gym continuing to build a culture that's starting to demand attention far beyond Idaho. But what really sets this fight card apart is the stories. We got rematches that mean something, fighters stepping into bigger moments, and even entire families stepping into the ring together. Today we're sitting down with the people carrying that momentum into Fremont Plaza. Coach Storm Pawson joins us alongside nationally ranked standout Ayeva Alonso, explosive Fremont champion Uriah Barajas, and Idaho State heavyweight Golden Gloves champion Leomar Partida, a fighter who somehow manages to coach, officiate, compete, and still headline a card. This is Fights on Fremont 5. Behind every great fighter, there's a coach who sees something before anyone else does. But every once in a while, you come across a coach who isn't just developing fighters, he's building people, culture, and a system that produces consistency. In Southern Idaho, that name is Storm Pawson. And from nationally ranked fighters to state champions to main event heavyweights, Fighters Chance Boxing Gym has quietly become one of the most respected pipelines in the region, and I can attest to that firsthand. So when you look at Fights on Fremont, you're looking at more than just an event. There's the energy, the turnout, the level of competition. A lot of that traces back to what's being built inside those gym walls. And today, I get to welcome one of the men behind that movement right here, Coach Storm. My brother, what's happening? How you doing? Welcome to the show.
How you doing, brother? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, bro. Hey, let's run it back. For those who haven't understood or got a chance to understand what's going on with this whole Fights on Fremont frenzy taking shape here, let's run it back to the origins behind what kind of led to starting Fighters Chance.
Right. So I grew up boxing. My dad was a kickboxer, and he got us into boxing when I was 11. My little brother was 8 at a spot in Hayburn called Gonzalez Boxing. And I fought for 7 years about. Um, and then that gym closed down, and we started another gym. And then my dad had always, when we trained at Gonzalez, it was a smaller gym, great coaching and great team, but there's always a lot of people that were trying to get in. And the group that we had was very consistent and stayed there. And so it was hard for new people to get started. And so my dad had always wanted to start something a little bigger that could help not just the at-risk youth in the area, but anybody that really wanted that outlet and that had a little bit more resources to help the kids. So we started a nonprofit in 2016. I believe we started the actual organization to start trying to get a gym, and then we opened the gym in, I believe, 2017 or 18, I think 17. And yeah, it was with the target of being a nonprofit, free to ages 8 to 18, with a little more space, and just to give the kids in the Mini-Cassia area the resources to have that outlet. And then we started building the competition team from there, and it just kind of blossomed.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So you ended up looking at it as an opportunity to, train some people, but then all of a
Yeah,
sudden realize it's something that's more than a gym that's
yeah,
developing. And
yeah,
so let's kind of tie that into the whole Fights on Fremont connection here and how that kind
yeah.
of grew from the original mission and what's evolved since then.
Right. So in 2022, I took over as head coach around 2020, and I'd been really wanting. When I was young, one of the best nights of my life was when we would host our shows as Gonzalez Boxing. And my second to last fight was actually a hometown fight that you were at, actually. And it was at the Burley Inn in Burley, Idaho. And I got a really good win, really had a really great performance. And it was just awesome to perform in front of my home crowd. It was the first of our Gonzalez boxing shows that I had been able to compete in. My brother had competed in a couple, and a bunch of my other teammates had, but I had never been able to get a match on our local ones, and it was just a great feeling. And so, building up when I took over as head coach and started really trying to build our competition team and get back into Idaho USA Boxing for Idaho Snake River and get back into that scene, I really wanted to find an event or a place that we could host an event, show what our team was doing, and give our kids that a chance to get that that night of their life, and perform in front of their family and their friends and the community supporters. And so in 2022, kind of last minute, I mean, I think we announced the first Fremont in April of 2022, and it was in June. I had just been stirring up the idea. We have the plaza that's right down by our gym, and I talked to a buddy of mine, Alex Adams, who's a big sponsor, supports us a bunch, and helped. He's been a sponsor at every Fremont. And we were actually at a wedding, and I was talking to him about the idea, and he was just like, he's basically the one that was like motivated me. Yeah, dude, like whatever you need, I'll sponsor, I'll help out, and kind of that burn the boats mentality, just like, all right, we're gonna do it.
Mhm.
And I got on a trip to Nashville like a week after that, and with a buddy of mine, and was talking about it. And his he's actually one of the people that he's from the association that helps fund the gym. And he uh he was like, yeah, dude, you need to do it. And so I got back, and the day I got back, we announced the event. Had talked to the city, got everything set up. And so that was the first one in 2022. We're getting ready to do year 5 in 2026. The 5th fights on Fremont. And it's just, yeah, it's, I mean, you've seen it since the beginning. It's grown into something that I knew it would grow, gradually and gradually, but the state it's at right now, it's surprised me.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And it's turning into, I'd say, somewhat of a cultural hub for the sport
Yeah.
and for what the area is needing to foster, which is
Yeah.
community, giving opportunity, providing opportunity
Yeah.
for fighters that otherwise they wouldn't have had the opportunity. And when you're looking at fighters today, though, like, what are you most proud of that has nothing to do with the wins themselves? Because there's a lot that's come with
It
it.
it's just I mean, like times like this, like we're in Canada right now. With we got 2 or 3, hopefully we're hoping 3, it just depends how weigh-ins go. Boxers from our gym competing in Canada. This is our 3rd year coming up here, our 2nd year coming to this area, Canada, Kelowna. And it's times like we brought a couple more, like Avea that you just interviewed. She just came just to support her team, and just come with her team and be here. And it's the trips like these that like you really get to see like the family that has developed among like fighters chants. And that's been the most rewarding thing is, we obviously is seeing these kids develop into outstanding citizens and respectful young adults, and then up into adults. But my favorite part is really watching like the team aspect and like the dynamic, like when I'm up driving the van and looking back at the kids like joking around together, and we're walking around these places, and they're taking pictures with each other, and they're just having a blast. It's just really seeing that family develop from our boxers, our youngest to our oldest. It's just that's been the greatest thing, is watching them develop, not only personally but just really find that sense of family.
Hmm. Speaking of that, I mean, you got kids like over there, they're 11 years old competing, at a
Yeah.
national level. Like, what's your approach to developing fighters like that without burning them out?
Yeah, I don't know, it's kind of a combination of, we kind of took the chance of throwing the girls in a national tournament a couple years ago. We went to an all-female nationals, and because it's difficult to get females fights, on just the regional and local scene, there's not as dense of a competition pool as there is for some of our boys, and especially some of our boys in like these really common weights. Um, like for instance, our boxer Tristan, he boxed at every Idaho show last year. He had 100, and to my knowledge, I think was the only boxer that was able to do that, because he's in a common weight, and he's willing to fight whoever. But it's different with the girls, and so a couple years ago, we entered them into an all female tournament in Louisiana, and we have very good role models as far as female boxing go. Kendra Samardzis from Twin and Jason Samardzis. Jason's he's been my mentor in this boxing game. I've known him since I was 11 years old. And he really, when I became head coach, he really took me under his wing, and they're family. And Kendra is, one of the top boxers in the nation. She's on the USA Boxing squad, which is the alternative to the USA Boxing team, and she's getting ready to box in Colombia next week. She's at the Olympic Training Center,
Hmm.
majority of the year. And then we have Alyssa Mendoza, our Olympian from Caldwell, her and her father are really good friends. And so we have kind of that North Star in our region to kind of be like, this is what you can do. This is, what you can achieve. We took the chance, went up to that national tournament, and at the time, that was actually Avea's first loss was at that tournament. And she only had a couple fights going into that, but we knew we had to enter her, up a level to get that experience and really just grow as a boxer. Her sister got silver at that tournament and then moved up a weight class the last day and beat the unopposed champion at the weight class above. So that's what really we kind of that gave us our gauge for, okay, we can go to these national tournaments, we can compete with the best of the best. Uh, Eliana, Avea's sister at that time, her like two of her first four fights were against former national competitors and national
Wow.
champions.
Mhm.
And, we had to take that chance because, like I said, it couldn't get him any fights. And both of them were at shows in Montana. And she brought it to him. She's
Mhm.
just a tough girl. So it's just, and also they're from a very competitive family. But the approach is just, I've learned a lot from, I go to a lot of these national tournaments, even when I'm not bringing my kids. I go with Jason and Kendra and help corner these different boxers and friends of ours. And the approach is just, the first step was showing them that they belong there. You know what I mean? Was taking them the
Mhm.
first one and letting them see, oh, okay, it's not something like I can hang with the best of the best. Like this is
Mhm.
where I belong. And that's why we try to take the step up with competition. Every time we get a Bea out there,
Yeah.
sometimes you have to. Sometimes the competition maybe isn't as great. Sometimes but we try to get the best we can. This girl that she's boxing on Fremont was her last match. It's a rematch from a month ago. A girl that beat her in a close fight. That's the age gap above. She's nationally ranked as well. She has like over three times the amount of fights that Avea
Mhm.
has, and we put her in. I put her in that fight, knowing that she, could do it.
Tough.
And
Yeah.
we lost a tough fight. We kind of had, our had the wrong game plan, in the girl's hometown, and she performed. That girl performed to the best of her abilities, and in her hometown crowd. And as soon as we got out of the ring, I went and asked the coaches and her family, if we could do it again, because when you get a good match like that, you want to hang on to it and get it again if you can, because
Yeah.
you don't know when you're going to get the next match for your girls. But yeah, it's just kind of getting them in the headspace of like, you belong here. The people you train with, the people you are getting you ready to perform the best of your abilities. The girls training alongside Kendra, and Eliana spars Kendra. So it's like getting them around greatness, training them around people that believe in them is really the approach to, ensuring them that, yeah, you belong at the top of the top.
Mhm. Well, talk about how you scope those out, if it's even something that you're able to do, like as somebody that's been coaching for a while. Like you see a lot of different people coming in the gym.
Yeah.
What is it that you're looking for when a kid first walks into the gym? Is there something you're looking for particularly to say, hey, this is somebody I'm going to invest a little bit more in, or is it
Yeah.
just like
It's
what is it?
it's kind of it's a couple different things, Gordy, because sometimes like obviously one of the important things is hunger. You're able to
Hmm.
kind of see that, and like when we do a tryout process to people that come and join the team, and the first thing you kind of look for in that tryout process isn't even necessarily, okay, are these kids
Skillful.
gifted,
Yeah.
but are they hungry, and do they want to be here? Do they want to earn it? Do they
Yeah.
want to like prove themselves? That's the first important thing. But then there's some kids that are just naturally talented, and you're kind of like, oh, so you know we really invest in the kids that want to be there, and then there's kids that are talented, and you don't invest a lot in the talented ones that they don't show any interest in being there. But those are kind of
Hmm.
the things you're looking for. Is okay, is there natural talent? We'll take that one. And then there's a hungry kid that has no natural talent, but he's working hard and he wants this,
Hmm.
or she wants this. Those are the kind of things that we scope out. And we have I have some assistant coaches that I can kind of sit back some days of tryouts and like go and talk to each coach that's kind of covering each area and get their opinion, and look from kind of a more outside perspective, and try to find the ones that are really, really grinding,
Hmm.
and also the ones that really look like natural athletes. So it's kind of just mixing those out. And like I said, you get a natural athlete that they're good, but they're just not interested. It's like,
Hmm.
it's not the sport for them. So those ones, let those ones go. But trying to find, you try to find a couple of both.
Yeah. Well, the ones that you've kind of found as diamond in the roughs. Let's get your I want to get your take on them. We've mentioned Avea several times here. What makes her
Mhm.
special to you at such a young age? What do you think is special about her?
Uh, Avea is a firecracker, man, and I'm very blessed. Some of the families that have been brought into my life through Fighters Chance, and the Alonso family is prime example of that. They really have became my family. We do a lot together. We've traveled the country together for boxing, and so Avea, Eliana, and their little brother, those are my little brothers and sisters. We're all very, very close family. And She's a firecracker, man. She's, like I said before, she comes from a very competitive family. Her dad and her uncles are all very, very high level wrestlers. She wrestles as well. And she's at a weird age right now where it's like, it's not even that she's very interested in boxing, but has such this like, it is what it is attitude. She's just like
Mm,
very competitive. Where like, her sister, if we're nervous at a tournament, if we're nervous, she's just kind of like, just tournament. It's gonna be all right. You know what I mean? She's got a
mm,
very calm. It's weird because when she's in the ring, she's very like high pressure and very intense, and then her attitude is just very relaxed on the outside. And she is, as far as natural talent goes, one of them that, and she's among one of the best I've coached as far as like just natural talent. She gets better every time she gets in there,
mm,
even if she's like has taken a couple weeks off of practice when she's wrestling or going to tournaments, and then she'll come back and spar, and she's just so competitive in her head that she'll just try things that like there's boxers that I have that study the sport and that really like that don't try moves that I see her like try sometimes. You know what I mean? Like different positioning and different hand positions. She'll just really try things in sparring, and that's what kind of separates her is just a natural ability of and natural athleticism, and then she's
mhm,
just a risk taker. She's willing to
mm,
try some things out in there, and she's just kind of really starting to develop her style. It's not as just like at her fight last year. She stopped the girl, but coming up to that in that fight, she was just very aggressive. But like both the Alonso sisters, if they can hit you and get in a position, they'll just drown you. They're not gonna stop. They're not gonna get off of you.
mm,
Kind of that Mexican style. But she's really started to develop into a boxer as well, and that's kind of what we're trying to hone in. And this last fight, she kind of resorted to the trying to brawl and trying to drown the girl, and her cardio just didn't hold up to it.
mm,
So we weren't preparing for that. We wanted a boxer, and so just kind of getting her to stick to a game plan right now, and
mhm.
and brawl when it's time to brawl, and box when it's time to box. Just get her able to recognize that. But yeah, she's just a real natural athlete.
That's what's up. Yeah. What about with Uriah Barajas? What stood out when Uriah first came into the gym and to where he's at now?
Right.
Like, what stands out with him?
Right. So Uriah is an interesting story, and I know we've touched on before is his mom contacted me. He was having some issues at school. He's getting harassed. He's getting bullied, and he was 11, 12. He was 12, maybe just about to know he was 11 or 12. And when he came in, I knew his mom, I knew his family, and they brought him in, and the kid, he was just defeated. Like you could tell he was just having such a hard time. He had the world on his shoulders. He just looking at the ground,
Mm,
and that changed very quickly when he started boxing. His family is a very fit, very disciplined family. His mom goes to the gym a lot, and so they installed that in him as far as like your health and like staying in the gym. And um, but it changed really quick when he had a family very fast. There's some kids, Tristan that's headlining Fremont this year had just started too. There's another kid at the time named Anthony. There's a couple kids his age that like he was really able to like started and bond with, and yeah, it just fixed so quick. Like he would come in a couple weeks later and he was coming up and giving you knuckles or shaking your hand,
mm,
looking in your eye, and you're just kind of like, oh wow,
mm,
this is really like improve this kid's life. It's been great. And then we started getting him into boxing, and they're into competing. In his first fight, he won a stoppage, and you're kind of like, oh, this kid could. But Uriah, Uriah is the one I talk boxing with the most, as far as like old school boxing or like the Four Kings. We're always talking like
mm,
both of us are Hagler guys, and he's the one that like he really does study the sport. He's
mm,
watching all the time. He's sending me things. He's asking me, hey, do you think this would work if I tried this move like this guy did? And so that's something I can really appreciate as a coach as well, as someone that like really loves the history of the sport and is like a student of the game.
mm,
He's a very, again, he's a real good natural athlete, but he works really hard. And he takes care of his body outside of the gym. I'm confident putting Uriah in pretty much any matchup I can get him, because I know that he's not going to get tired. He's going to be physically in shape for it. And even if someone more experienced than him, if he doesn't win the fight, he's such a fast learner. He learns from that and take that into his next fight. So that's it's been awesome to see. It's like the kid, you'd meet the guy and like you'd never think that this was this
mm,
12-year-old kid that was getting bullied. Like
mhm.
like
Right.
if people that are at Fremont in this fight this year, if they're like, that's the kid, like it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to you. You know what I mean? Nobody should be bullied, but like you don't look at this kid and be like, nah, that doesn't fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Because he's
yeah,
changed
that's the
so
story with
much.
Uriah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. What would you say? I mean, you mentioned a couple of things about him being really a student. It sounds like he's a student of the game. He's a
Yeah.
student of, how to take care of your body. He's a student of what you're teaching him. And
Yes.
I have my own thoughts about what your response might be to this, but I want to hear what you think about what makes him dangerous right now in light of how he's grown.
What makes him a dangerous opponent right now is he's such he is like a hot knife through butter. You know, if he gets an opening, he's relentless. He's a very, he's like sticking a fork in a electrical socket. You know what I mean? He's just very
Hmm.
explosive. And he has a little bit something to prove right now. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
This last couple of years, he's had some losses. Even last Fremont. He lost his match at Fremont 4, coming off of being a champion at Fremont 2, a champion at Fremont 3, and that loss was kind of surrounded by a couple other losses. You know what I mean? He had I don't want to say a funk, but it's the
Sure.
boxing game. You win some,
Yep.
you lose some, but he he's these last couple fights has really had something to prove. He's won his last two fights against really, really good competition. He's kind of gotten back into like a positive swing, and he's taken this Fremont match very seriously. He's fighting a really tough kid that an 18-year-old, that just won state Golden Gloves. That's at an age where he's fighting with adults. Has that up.
Right.
So Uriah, it's kind of a step up in maturity as far as boxers go. Uriah has experience on him, so that's something that we're definitely taking into account, is that we have the advantage as far as experience goes, but you're fighting more mature opposition now. And we're in Canada right now. He's fighting tonight. He got a pretty solid opponent from up here that we don't know a whole lot about, but which is risky as well. And he's taking this fight very seriously. But Fremont he's not looking past this fight, but he's very much uh, motivated to put in a good Fremont performance. He doesn't feel like last year really showed who he was. He felt like he let some people down, and so he's got something to prove. And so that mixed with his style of boxing, it's I think that's what makes him it's gonna make a tough night for anybody, you know what I mean? Is his style, and he's not aggressive in a way where like his emotions are he's just gonna make himself vulnerable. He's a very calculated aggression, you can sit out in the pocket and watch, and then so I think the way he's been working and the way he's just been, in his head lately, just getting himself motivated, I think is what makes him a dangerous opponent right now for anybody.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And with Leomar, he's
Yeah.
wearing multiple hats, as him and I get to talk
Yeah.
about, right? Fighter,
Yes.
coach, officiant. That's a pretty
Yeah.
rare combination. What would you say about him that is, I don't want to say dangerous too, but him leading into, competing at a high level that makes him somebody to keep your eyeballs on?
Right. Well, there's a lot of people could say, that when you're coaching, when you're doing all this, that you're not able to really focus on yourself as a fighter.
Yeah.
Um, I think the way Leo balances it out is, I think it makes him a little more dangerous, because when I started coaching, you learning a lot as you coach. You can kind of see things when you're trying to teach a kid something. You're like, "Oh, I think I maybe make that mistake too," or you know what I mean, or I'm going to try it. And I think that keeps you a student of the game. If you're the right kind of coach, you're constantly learning and you're teaching yourself, in real time, by getting to see people from the most fundamental skill set at the beginnings to the advanced. You're kind of seeing where you can fix something everywhere. And it's kind of the same thing when you start judging too. That
Hmm.
part of what makes me like so good at the matchmaking process is the fact that I referee and judge a lot of these guys. So I can see, like, as soon as I'll leave a show, I'll be like, that person, that guy with that guy, or that girl with that girl, that'd be a good match. It's because
Hmm.
you really have like front row access. And so I think Leo has really benefited from it, from coaching, and from I think it's given him a deeper love of the sport, being able to watch people grow and be on the coaching side of things. Um, and that he puts in a lot of overtime. When if we got a busy week coaching, then we're staying late, and he's coming in on extra hours, and he's a very fast heavyweight. That's the thing about Leo, is he's very quick. And a lot of it, I think I attribute a lot of it to, he's the biggest of his like class of box. Like the kids that came up boxing with him when he started sparring, were damn near 100 pounds lighter than him, or up to it.
Yeah.
So when you're a good sparring partner, you're not just going to go out as the big guy and just run through somebody. You're going to try
Mhm.
to, it's good positive sparring is you're trying to kind of match their skill set. You're trying to pick up your speed. You're trying, in a fight, if you're fighting somebody faster than you, you're obviously going to try to overpower them and use your advantages. But I think that really helped him grow his speed because, then when he started sparring, when he got old enough to kind of start sparring my brother and Eric and our other heavyweights, that was something that he was able to bring against those guys was some speed that's just out of this world. And he's a very calm boxer. Like you don't see him overwhelmed in there at all. When we came to Canada last year, that was the first adult he had boxed,
Wow.
and
Okay.
the we were at weigh-ins. We thought it was some other guy that was actually ended up being a coach. We're like, oh, cool, whatever. Like I think that's Leo's opponent. And we went to see the doctor, and he comes out and he goes, I found my opponent. And Leo at the time had just turned 18, just barely. And it was this big dude with a beard, big adult guy, probably close to my age.
Uh-huh.
And so I told Leo, I said, I don't care who they are. I know who we are. Like, get out of your head. And he was very nervous, which is fine, it's justified, especially in heavyweight boxing. But then I go and I'm talking to a coach from a different gym, this big Scottish guy. And he's like, oh, is that your heavyweight? And I go, yeah. And he's kind of like, oh, that guy's it's kind of short. Like, and then he goes, oh, I fought the guy that he's fighting. I go, oh, nice. And he's like, he knocked me Spark out. I
Mm.
was like, and I turned around and I'm like, I'm not telling Leo that. Like he's already in his head.
Mhm.
Like, and we went and Leo took it to the kid and he beat the guy, and he got a cut in the third round and
Mhm.
he beat him. It was unanimous decision, he beat this guy and that was kind of his coming out party, because
Yeah.
so I think up to like two fights before that, that was right in the middle of this win streak that he's on. Um he had right at the start of this win streak, he fought that he was 17. He boxed this 300-pound kid from Nevada,
Wow.
and we had just been watching a lot of like Usyk Fury, like using your footwork, how to beat the bigger guy, beat him pretty soundly, and then got a couple wins after that, and then so this was kind of his coming out party of like, okay, we know that next year you're going to be able to box as adults, these
Mhm.
grown men, and it's just been even better for him. He's performed better against the tougher competition and the grown men than he even did around the teenagers when he was young. So it was a really good opportunity for him to kind of show, oh, I can bang with the big boys. And
Yeah.
I think the performance he had last year, we were looking at it, it actually got ruled as a disqualification because when it was getting stopped and the kid had been very vocal with the referee, and so the referee, he was stopping it and kind of disqualifying the kid at the same time. So we had thought this whole time it was ruled as a stoppage, and he stopped the kid, but really it's a disqualification. And you were there, and the
Mhm.
kid threw a real scene, and but Leo was just calm the whole time. You know what I mean? He's just able to pick the
Mhm.
guy apart, and I think he's excited for another Fremont experience like that, and just to put on for his home crowd. And there's some people it's not good to fight in their home crowd, like the
Mhm.
adrenaline dumps too much. Some people it's really good, like Avea. I think she used that motivation just like really walk through that girl last year. I think it's some people like Leo, where it's just another day. You're calm. No matter the setting, he's in there, and I think that's something that makes him a really tough guy to beat. Is you can't overwhelm him. He's
Yeah.
just very composed.
Yeah. With everything you're sharing here, I mean, it's tying into a central theme for me that I'm picking up on, and I think it's one of the reasons why you're having such a big impact, not just on the couple fighters that we've kind of deep dove into, but the whole roster as a whole. And that's the fighter's chance is something that feels more than a gym, right? It feels more like a
Yeah,
family, and
yeah,
I can probably allude to where that stems from, especially with your pops and background and
yeah,
whatnot that you got. But how intentional would you
yeah.
say that is in developing that?
I think it's pretty intentional. But a lot of it, like what you said with my dad, my dad growing up in the motorcycle world with my dad, there's a lot of things that like a lot of commonalities that I noticed and like how I approach boxing. Like, I grew up with my dad having, guys from the Hells Angels, staying at my house. I was a 9-year-old kid, like charging Hells Angels rent for my bedroom,
Mhm.
for the weekend. My dad had a lot of friends from like Europe that would come stay in the summer. Um, and then I was talking to somebody about this pretty recently, and that was kind of like, I have those same connections like with boxing coaches around the world. I go to these national tournaments and I've got buddies that a really good buddy of mine lives in Nashville, that's always good to see at the tournaments, and we're always, hitting each other up about different boxing things. I got, friends from Pittsburgh that I've met, and and then we're here in Canada because of the connections we made here, and it's just a respect thing, and
Hmm.
that gets you when people see like your intentions that you're a coach that cares about your fighters, cares about, and not just his fighters, but boxers as a whole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want everybody to get the best experience with the sport that I love, and there's sometimes where it can get a black eye even for the boxers, like they get mismatched, and it's like now they're out of love with the sport that that could be very positive for them. And so, but yeah, a lot of that it's just respect, and you respect people that have the same intentions as you, and getting to go to all these national tournaments and stuff and meet all these different connections, and it's grown to a family like even outside of Fighters Chance, and
Hmm.
that was really the intention. I think was with my dad starting Fighters Chance was to give these kids a place where they had that family,
Yeah.
and so I think that part was pretty intentional, but that's even grown with all of our connections as well. It's just a big pipeline
Yeah.
of people that we've got.
Yeah. So how do you think, as a whole, kind of a loaded question, but how do you think events like Fights on Fremont and collectively what you're doing, obviously as a whole, with the build up to this, but how do you
Yeah.
think that this is actually changing how Idaho boxing is viewed as a whole?
I think it's very positive for Idaho boxing. I think it's I've seen firsthand that people that have come to our show have made connections with other gyms and came to those shows, and um, I think it gives the boxers of Idaho boxing a lot of opportunities. That there's a lot of good shows in Idaho, and there's good coaches that host some good events, and but I've always tried to make Fights on Fremont something a little different, and I think it's a good opportunity to get some of our local and regional boxers, different looks. If you can get someone from Canada, you get someone from I try not to do a whole lot of matches that you could see, that are. I don't want to do a lot of rematches. Bays is a rematch, but that's a nationally ranked girl from Montana, from a different state, and
Hmm.
I try to just give everybody something that is a good match for them, and that can really help with their growth in the sport. And yeah, it's I've seen other coaches connect with other coaches from our show, and I think it's been really good, and it's a big it's a big show, and it differs from like other boxing shows where like a lot of these shows, like whether they're at a school gym or something like that, sometimes you get people that just show up for their family members fight and then they
Hmm.
leave. And Fremont's really like an event, like the sponsors that buy tables, they're going to be there the whole time. They want to come, they're not just coming
Yep.
for one fighter. The crowd that's coming, we're promoting this as a boxing show to come watch the local athletes and watch like some of the best boxers in the country and the region and from Canada. You're promoting it as like something to really come enjoy. It's an event.
Hmm.
It's to be experienced. It's an experience. Like it's not just come watch one fight. So rather than just drawing an audience from the boxer support systems, we're really trying to draw in an actual audience that
Hmm.
that is there, kind of uh, keeping the spectacle
Hmm.
alive. So I think that's been really good for Idaho boxing and for our athletes and for us as a whole.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I want to give you a few questions, rapid fire
Okay.
questions. So, first
Yeah.
thought that comes to mind could be a word, could be a
Okay.
one sentence response.
Okay.
When it's all said and done, what do you want Fighters Chance to be known for?
I want Fighters Chance to be. I want the legacy to be, just family and safe place, for growth.
Yeah. Harder to teach, skill or discipline?
Discipline.
Most important trait in a fighter?
Heart.
One thing every young fighter needs to hear?
You're not going to be the best in every room you're in.
What excites you most about Fights on Fremont 5?
This again, we have our amount of Fighters Chance boxers on the show grows every year. I think we have at least 15 boxing this year, and just for the community to continue to see the growth in our program.
Yeah. Storm, what you're building, bro, it's not just producing wins. You're actually building people who can carry themselves differently, and I think that's what people are really starting to pay attention to and notice, and it's carrying shockwaves, brother. So proud of you.
Thank you, bro.
Super stoked at
Thank you,
what's
bro.
coming up down the deck,
Thank you.
and
I appreciate you, bro.
you coming on, brother.
Thank you, bro. Your support means a lot. I appreciate you, brother.
You got it.